It's Tuesday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Happy that all of you have chosen to spend part of this day with me, taking a break perhaps from doom scrolling, whatever you're doing today, to kind of get through the process of the election, whatever your persuasion is, however you have decided to vote. This will be a politics-free zone. I should mention, on my personal website, The Friscalating Dusklight, I wrote about the process of voting. Again, not necessarily political, more economics, just kind of my observations, how it felt to vote this year. I don't really talk about that site much on the podcast here. It's a little bit of a diversion from all of my traditional sports writing, but if you want to check that out, it's The Friscalating Dusklight. It's a Substack. You can find it pretty easily through my social media or just by searching for me and Substack. So, like I said, this is a free zone. We're going to talk sports today. Andrew Krammer from the Star Tribune joins me to break down the film from the Vikings defeat of the Colts on Sunday night. I thought it was an important game, plenty of takeaways. I had some spicy ones for Andrew. We'll get into that here in a little bit, plus looking at the offensive line, how the defense played, things of that nature, plus the expanded role of Jordan Addison in this game, a subject of much conversation last week. My good friend Keith Rashat will also join me for some Vikings poetry here in a little bit. A very special week of poetry coming off of a win for the first time in a while. We didn't do poetry last week because it was a Thursday game. Keith very upset about that, and he had some things to say about that, so we'll get to that here in a little while as well. Gopher women's basketball team cruised to a win last night. We'll get to that at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? In a country, in an electorate divided almost evenly, we found something Tuesday night that almost everybody could be happy about, a rarity in these times, and that was the last 3 quarters of the Timberwolves win over the Charlotte Hornets. I say only the last 3 quarters because there was already some bitterness. There was 24-24 at the end of the first quarter. Wolves were expected to maybe rout the Hornets. It took a little while for them to get there, but they opened it up big time in the second quarter, cruised, expanded that lead in the third quarter, and then by the end, they got to play all the young guys. Everybody got to see the young guys play. Rob Dillingham got in for 8 minutes. Terrence Shannon Jr. for 6, Josh Minot for 8, Luka Garza for 7, and then PJ Dozier got in for 6 too. They basically emptied the bench with about halfway through the fourth quarter, way earlier than they usually do, coasted to a 114-93 win. Everybody happy. You couldn't find anything to dislike about that game beyond the first quarter. You would really have to squint really, really hard because everybody, by and large, had a really good game, especially the 6th, 7th, and 8th men off on the roster this year. I think the Wolves, I tweeted this last night, I think the Wolves, they had the 6th man of the year last year, Naz Reid. I think they have the 6th, 7th, and 8th men of the year this year. Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, not necessarily even in that order, but all of them were in the deep plus category last night. DiVincenzo and Naz Reid each plus 33 last night, plus 33. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's been terrific this year, was a plus 22. Their bench, their first 3 off the bench are such an asset. They are winning those minutes so frequently this year as their starters try to incorporate Julius Randle, try to incorporate kind of a new style as they figure this out. That is a huge asset for them to have. It was a good Rudy Gobert game. He had, 8 points, 8 rebounds, didn't have to do much, but he was a plus 15. Ant had a breezy 21 points. One of the best Mike Conley games of the year, 11 points, 4 assists. He's a plus 20. Julius Randle was solid, dishing out assists. He filled up the box score, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Like, not much you can find quibble with in this game. Yeah, maybe you can say, Jaden McDaniels got to get him going. He had 9 points. He wasn't great, but you know what? Almost across the board, a Timberwolves game that you could say, okay, finally you see the true potential of this team. They've been kind of grinding things out. They had a good comeback win over the Kings to kind of go to split those first 2 of the season. They had to work a little too hard, it felt like, to beat the Raptors in that first home game. Then they lost to the Mavericks. Yeah, they came back and beat the Nuggets, but it was more kind of a fast finish than it was a satisfying overall product. And they go and lose to the Spurs after that. Just kind of an uneven, unsatisfying first 6 games. So this one felt a lot more satisfying if you are a Wolves fan. Yeah, Charlotte's terrible. Yeah, this is a game they should win. This is exactly how you would want them to win. And guess what? That's what they did in this game. So something for everybody to get behind, something for everybody to enjoy, a rarity in this day and age. Let's review the film with Andrew Krammer. Gave him a few hours sleep before I bugged him to look it all back on. We're doing this on Monday morning. It's coming to you a little bit later. Andrew, how you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, Vikings 6-2 got up early enough to at least watch back part of that game, but it's still fresh in my mind, certainly.
Okay, well, we're going to look at the film. I'm going to do some. I'm going to give you my 3 hot takeaways first.
Let's do it
before we get to that. Number 1, I think Kevin O'Connell likes the way Sam Darnold plays more than he liked the way Kirk Cousins played.
Oh, that's typically spicier than you get. No, I disagree with that, but please elaborate. Like, what do you mean by that?
I think he keeps saying that Darnold is playing well because he's taking chances, and the thing he had to convince Kirk Cousins to do all the time that drove him crazy was that Kirk wouldn't take enough chances. And I think KOC is more willing to live with the consequences of those risks and rewards than other coaches might be. I think he likes the way Darnold plays the position more than he liked the way Cousins played the position.
I see where you're going with that. I would say no, just because what I think coaches, and O'Connell included, prefer is the baker, to use the anecdote of the chef versus the baker, the guy who's going to follow the recipe toe for toe, line for line, and get the ball exactly where it needs to be on time, when it needs to be delivered. And Sam Darnold is much more of an inconsistent guy right now. And I think what they're trying to do with Sam is toe the line between him being too conservative and not giving chances to the playmakers downfield, while also not wanting him to be the turnover machine that he was with the Jets and the Panthers, where he was taking too many chances and playing hero ball. It's a fine line. And I think when he turns the ball over like he's done, you might see the line shift this week to, well, check it down a bit more. And then if he checks it down too much, they're going to push him and say, no, we want to be aggressive and push the ball downfield more. I see what you're saying. I think the frustration with Kirk was always the risk aversion. It was, yes, that he wouldn't take chances sometimes and throw past the sticks. And they kind of had to will him more. But at the same time, he was much more of that game manager, Kirk Cousins was, than Sam Darnold is trying to aspire to be at this point. So I think O'Connell appreciated everything Kirk was, the breadth and of knowledge that Kirk had, that everything you could do with him. They have to be a lot more simplistic. They have to be a lot more clear and concise with Sam Darnold to get what they're getting out of him. This is requiring much more hands-on coaching, whereas with Kirk, it was much more of that kind of, well, let's jump around the graduate studies and see what kind of fun stuff we can do this week. I just think it's so worldly different right now with Darnold, and they are having to manage him more, manage his psyche, manage the plays, manage the reads than they did with Kirk. I do get the point, though, of the aggression, because Kevin O'Connell said it last night. He said, we think that is an edge for us, being aggressive with Sam Darnold and this offense. He would have said the same thing about Kirk Cousins and that offense. What he's talking about, I think, reading between the lines, is the playmakers. It's Jefferson, it's Hawkinson, it's Addison. You're not going to win unless you're forcing the ball at times to those guys to make them win their one-on-one matchups. So I think some of it's just managing Darnold, but I do think that their aggression is trying to make sure Sam doesn't overplay the game manager stuff that, frankly, they've been preaching to him all offseason. He came here from San Francisco saying, I learned how to manage games. I learned how to win. And the Vikings know they play good defense. So they're trying to tell him to be that game manager. At the same time, don't anger Jordan Addison by not throwing him the ball. Don't anger Justin Jefferson by not throwing him the ball. Please be aggressive.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think those are good points. I don't know if I wouldn't go so far to say as he likes Sam Darnold, the quarterback, more than he liked Kirk Cousins, the quarterback. I just think he likes the way Darnold plays. The style of quarterback. He would rather have someone with a big arm who is a little bit more on the risk side than a guy who is a little bit more on the not risk side.
Yeah, the big arm part, I would totally agree with you on there. I just think coaches are so risk averse. They're always going to be like, give me the guy who makes the right play 100% of the time that I drew up in the dirt.
I think O'Connell's less risk averse than a lot of coaches. He just seems that way to me. But maybe Darnold's doing a lot more freelancing than we know, and he's taking more chances than KOC would really care for.
Yeah, and look, when he threw that first interception in the end zone, all of us are in the press box being like, "What are you doing? You threw it right to the guy." And after the game, O'Connell didn't say, "Don't throw that." He just said, "Just aim it a little higher." So, and that was a spot where Hawkinson was well covered. Like the guy,
that was a bad throw.
The ball was thrown right to him, and yeah, to your point, Mike, the head coach is saying, "Just aim that a little bit higher next time."
Staying with Darnold for hot takeaway number 2. Sam Darnold is having a much better season than Jordan Love.
Yeah, well, right now, absolutely. Yes. I don't think that's too hot of a take because health is why for Love. And also when Love has been out there, he's made some bad decisions. He loses the game. I'm thinking that I think it was the Philadelphia game. He made some backbreaking decisions in the opener. Some of the other games he's been healthy for, there's been throws he's had to answer for after the fact. I just can't go game by game and remember exactly, but Sam Darnold has been at least available for his team. And on Sunday night, when he's been at his best, like on Sunday night in the red zone, he's throwing touchdowns. Now, he had more mistakes this time than you would have liked. The Vikings are obviously arguing that Sam Darnold's strip sack should probably be taken off the board by a penalty that was picked up. But it still happened, and that's still a mistake that you at least need to hold on to the football. He throws 2 interceptions that were pretty, bad decisions or certainly bad throws at the very least. But all in all, I would agree with you. I think because he's been available, been out there, this offense has kept them, or at least for the most part, kept them in most of these games. So, yeah, I would say, but when Love is healthy, if he were fully healthy, it seems like he's pushing himself out there to play through injury. If he were fully healthy, I think Jordan Love is obviously the better quarterback.
I think that's true. I'm just saying Darnold's having a better year. More touchdown passes, fewer interceptions. Love's thrown 1 interception at least in all 7 starts this year. Had that terrible pick 6 against the Lions yesterday. Better QBR for Darnold right now. I thought it was strange that the Packers played Love yesterday. They must have thought he was okay enough to play, but a quarterback with a groin injury against a really good defense in a driving rain at Lambeau Field did not seem like the best conditions to try that.
Especially a quarterback who likes to take chances. Like you talk about an aggressive quarterback, that's Jordan Love. Jordan Love seems to have that blend of Rodgers where the mobility and the accuracy, but then the Favre decision-making where you're like, what are you doing? But yeah, he likes to get out and run. And if you have an injury like that, they got to manage it. And they decided not to do that.
Confirming one more thing, number 3, the Vikings should be working on an extension for Byron Murphy Jr. if they're not already. What are we waiting for? Get this guy signed. You got nothing else.
Yeah, if I'm Byron at this point, I'm saying, you know what? Let's hold off. I'm gonna continue to bet on myself.
That's true too.
The price is going up. He's got 3 interceptions. He's been playing fairly well for them. At times, missed tackles and open field play has been an issue for him, but it really hasn't been recently, which is to his credit. They don't have corners really.
Nobody is signed for next year. Mekhi Blackman. I mean, we're happy. It's great.
I think they need to make an aggressive move on him when he's willing to listen. And if that's not till the end of the season, then do it right away at the end of January, whenever your season ends. Because he's been a great addition for them. He's versatile. He does everything Brian Flores wants to do in terms of playing inside, playing outside. And he's also somebody that can disguise really, really well as a savvy veteran. You watch him. I watched him drop into a cover 2 against Joe Flacco, where Cam Bynum's selling the single high and then drops down into kind of the middle robber, the low alignment where he deflects a pass. It's stuff like that that's built off of Harrison Smith and Byron Murphy being able to sell something else and then drop deep. And you can't do that if a Caleb Evans is that corner. You can't do that necessarily if you just draft a kid and throw him in there. Yeah. So, he's been huge. And frankly, you started off with your hottest take on number 1, in my opinion.
Yes, I went spiciest to mildest, I guess, in this case. But might as well shoot your shot right away. Yeah. You getting into the film, you wrote about Cam Robinson after the game, and he, it wasn't surprising how much he played, and I thought he did pretty well. There's obviously going to be a drop off from Christian Darrisaw, an all-pro caliber left tackle to whoever you bring in, but it feels like they did something that kind of gives them some leverage there, some opportunities. What did you think of how he played? And frankly, the rest of the line felt like a bigger problem to me.
Yeah, honestly, I would agree with you. I thought Blake Brandel, Ed Ingram, there was the one really bad moment with Garrett Bradbury on that strip sack. But other than that, it was the guards that were, I thought, the most problematic, including in the run game, where in the first half, at least watching it back, Ed Ingram had some really head-scratching run blocks that just weren't good. And you could tell Kevin O'Connell wanted to get the screen game going. And so there was a lot of out in space kind of stuff that Ingram's just really not that great at, hitting moving targets, lining them up, all that stuff. And then there were some weird designs where I thought you're asking him to go from one side of the field to the other. Anyway, there was some stuff that you could tell they were really trying to get the screen game going. And I thought the offensive line struggled with some of what they were asking them to do. What I really liked and what was smart was how Cam Robinson was put out there 72 hours after first practicing with the team and was not asked to be Christian Darrisaw.
Right.
From what we talked to from players, the communication plan was simplified to accommodate him. And then the actual play, they brought in tight ends, they brought in running backs, they brought in Trent Sherfield, a blocking wide receiver, to chip the edge or straight up double team his guy at times. And there were times that it seemed overkill, that he didn't need that extra assistance. And you really only saw him get beat once by Kwity Paye when he got called for holding. Other than that, it wasn't a lot of quick beats or bad plays from him. So I was encouraged. I would think at this point, the Vikings sound encouraged from what they saw from Cam Robinson. And then I would think going forward, you might see him get less help and maybe them give more help to the interior line, which there's all this talk about Dalton Reisner. There's all this talk. He got activated on this weekend and he was
366. He was 366. Come on.
He was a backup still. And I don't think pass blocking, and that's always been Ed Ingram's thing, where he can get beat really quickly in pass protection and lose his focus and all that. Well, run blocking hasn't been that great either. And then on Sunday, I thought his pass blocking was actually okay. And it was more Brandel who in pass protection got beat a couple times. Reisner's not going to be that much of a difference maker in the run game. He's just not. We've seen who he is throughout his career. He's not much of a mover. He's a try-hard effort guy. He's generally in the right spot, but physically he's just not going to do a lot for you. Ingram, when the stars align and he does everything right on a play, he makes a bigger difference than Reisner can make, especially in the run game. It just was a big struggle on Sunday night against Grover Stewart, against DeForest Buckner, against a really big Colts interior defensive line that really puts a needle on the weakness of the Vikings offense. So it's a bad matchup, but at the same time, I was surprised at how little help the Vikings gave their interior line, and it seemed to be at the cost of really trying to help their new left tackle, which I totally understand. And it worked. When you see Justin Jefferson catch a 40-yard pass down the right sideline, it's in part because Trent Sherfield is chipping that left tackle's guy. There were a couple other shots downfield they took, and whenever they asked Darnold to hold the ball for 3 or 4 seconds, they tried to give Cam Robinson help, but there were a couple plays, some third downs where Sam Darnold just had to vacate or take a sack because that interior was getting blown up.
I thought it was interesting on the subject of blocking that I don't know if it was Jones or Ham, but like on obvious passing downs, they will move their running back very close to the line of scrimmage, not have them even line up really in a threat to run the ball position. They'll be like a yard away from the line. I don't know. I don't remember seeing that from a lot of other teams or from the Vikings.
It's standard on 3rd and long. It's standard when there's just no run coming. And I think there was one play I saw that it was 3rd and 16 where, I guess you could theoretically do a draw. The defense is just not worried about it. So you do it when you're not giving up a tell and everybody knows it's going to be a pass. And frankly, you do it, when you're saying, CJ, I'm going to need you to really step up and give this defensive tackle a shoulder here.
Okay. We talked about Darnold quite a bit in the context of some of those hot takeaways, but what did you make of his game before we get to the defense? It was a little all over the map. It's kind of the full Sam Darnold experience, but he did make a lot of big throws interspersed with those kind of back-breaking plays.
He did. I thought he was really efficient to start the game. What was interesting is that they schemed up stuff for Jordan Addison in this game. Not only does Addison make the spectacular touchdown grab, but early in the game, it was just schemed first read touches. It was, no, this is a play action first read to the flat to Addison. It's a jet sweep directly to Addison. It's a screen to the opposite side directly to Addison. That all happened within, I think, the first few drives for the Vikings. So O'Connell went into this saying, we got to get this guy going, Jordan Addison. He just hadn't been a big enough part of the game plan. He had a season-low 2 catches in the last game against the Rams, and he's too good to not get the ball in his hands. And I think them scheming these touches for him kind of show you where the lack of connection was that we had talked about between Darnold and Addison. It's like you got to be more forceful as a coach to get him the ball, and they did. The connection that seemed very natural was to Justin Jefferson. It seemed no problem forcing the ball to him, including during an interception, the second interception that was forced to him over the middle. But they hit a lot of those big plays, a lot of 20-yard chunks. He had a 20, 22, 24, 41-yarder. That was all shot plays where it's protection schemed up. They're giving him extra blockers up front, and it's all just aimed at getting Jefferson open downfield. I thought Darnold balanced well when they wanted him to take shots and when they wanted him to just check it down. And that's been an issue for him against the Rams. It was an issue for him against the Jets before that. And he seemed to do a very good job of that. It was just those few plays. And really, when I say few, it wasn't just the 3 turnovers. I think back to a couple of the sacks where he's evading the pocket or not throwing it away, having a bad feel. And that actually goes to even some of the incompletions where and there weren't many of them, but there were some times where he was just dirting the ball or throwing it away when he shouldn't have been. There was one huge play that he could have had to Jordan Addison, but that was blown up because of interior pressure, again, with the Colts D-line getting a hand in his face. So there's multiple factors in it. But all in all, the Vikings will take this from Sam Darnold. 3 red zone touchdown passes. Finishing those drives with touchdowns was so critical in a game where Will Reichard is hurt. The kicker is not reliable as he was. So, and frankly, they're not running the ball that great in short yardage or red zone situations. So they need Sam to do that. So as long as he's giving you those 3 touchdown passes, they'll live with the 3 turnovers. You just overall want him to clean that stuff up. And it's those inconsistent kind of Jekyll Hyde decision-making things that rear their ugly head with him that, you want him to clean up, but that's kind of what makes him Sam Darnold and a not finished product at this point is he's going to have those. And fortunately for the Vikings, they are a better built team than the Colts to withstand that.
Major League Baseball a few years ago, I can't remember exactly what year it was, went to, hey, just put up the four when you want to intentionally walk someone instead of having to actually throw the 4 pitches. Can the Vikings just, whenever they have first and goal from the 1, can they just signal to the refs that they want to take it straight to second and goal from the 2? Because that's exactly what always happens whenever they try to run on first and goal from the 1.
When Jefferson got stopped at the 1, just short on that big 40-yard pass, as a Vikings fan, you got to be thinking, oh, God, no, come on. Because that last yard is always so hard for them to get. And
then they went Jones for -1, and they tried that trick play. I can't remember who wound up with the ball there. That didn't work. So then it's like 3rd and goal from the 7, and then they get it into Naylor. They throw the touchdown pass to Naylor, but it's like it's almost like they're better off being further back. They just can't rush for a 1-yard touchdown from a conventional alignment.
Yeah, they tried running with Aaron Jones, like you said. Then I think it was a little pass,
shovel pass,
swing pass to Aaron Jones as well. -7 yards. It's just
not great.
They can't move people up front.
No.
They don't have a good power run game. Jones has always been more of a speed slasher back than a power back. And so, if he's not outrunning somebody to the pylon, I don't know what their good short yardage game is. It has to be the play action. It has to be Sam Darnold.
CJ Ham.
That's true. They've got him. And how about some Cam Akers? We should probably spend some time.
He was good.
Talking about how he deserves a little bit more, I think.
He's RB2. He is now RB2 very clearly.
Yeah, Ty Chandler's not only in the doghouse, has been left out there for a while now because Cam Akers finally gets involved in his 3rd week back. And I think that should show the coaching staff that, hey, let's give some more to him and take some load off Aaron Jones a little bit, because it's been 4 of the last 5 games Aaron Jones has played at least 75% of the snap share. his season high in Green Bay was like 61%. So
yeah,
he's already had one little nick that he's had to deal with in the hamstring injury. You got to keep that guy healthy.
Yep. And I thought Akers was really good. Fresh legs. He looked like he was every bit the runner that Jones has been this year, even if he's not as complete of a back. Final thing, I was worried that Joe Flacco was going to carve them up. That did not come to fruition. How much of that was Flacco, at least for a game? He's been good this year and then was last year too. How much was it for him for a game showing his age versus Brian Flores kind of and the defense getting back into their groove and finding a winning formula again?
Yeah, I thought there were certain aspects of the defense that played very well. I thought their run defense, I thought Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Bullard especially jumped out on the interior. Jonathan Grenard continues to play very well. But in the past game, it at least watching it back the first half, it initially just seemed to me like Joe Flacco wasn't very good. It seemed to me like he was missing passes. There was an early one that wide open. His receiver comes on a little corner route over the middle, just right into the dirt. No chance. There's other passes. He sailed over the head of Jonathan Taylor in the flat. There was one time he just forced a pass into double coverage down the field when there's an open guy on third down to his right. It's just things that Flacco looked like a 37-year-old out there.
39-year-old.
Or excuse me, 39-year-old, whatever.
Almost 40 in, I think, January. So
he looked like he was part of Matt Ryan's draft class back in 2008. That's how old Joe Flacco is. So to me, this was a good get right game for the Minnesota Vikings defense, a good confidence builder. Not that they necessarily needed it, because this is a very confident group, but I do think some of the same issues are still there. When the Colts offensive line, which is a good group, when they protected and gave Flacco time, there were holes for Flacco to find. He just didn't always find them. And you saw it initially in the game when you get the 22-yarder on third down over Harrison Smith. You get a couple passes to Pittman and Downs over the middle in some areas where you just kind of felt like this is the same stuff the Lions did, the same stuff the Rams did. The Colts just couldn't do it consistently enough because Joe Flacco just isn't that great. And then eventually toward the end of that game, I think once Jonathan Taylor was taken out of it, it was just too easy for the Vikings defense.
I thought Harrison Smith made a couple pretty big plays on the drive. I think it was still 14-10, and it was third down and fourth down. I think he broke up both of those passes and really kind of might get lost in the shuffle, but he made two really big plays to break up passes and get them off the field, and then they come down and score, and that's basically the end of the game.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's just a savvy guy who's watching where Flacco is looking, knowing what's coming, all that. And when you don't have a quick gunslinger like Matthew Stafford side-arming passes everywhere, just, like as quick as a bullet, Harrison can jump those. And he did well. It was him. Byron Murphy gets a pick. Cam Bynum deflects a pass early in that game. The secondary played, fairly well, but it's just tough to be too optimistic about it because I think they will look this way against your Flaccos, your Mason Rudolphs next week against Tennessee or 2 weeks from now. Maybe even against Trevor Lawrence next week in Jacksonville. It might look that easy. The question just is when you have to face Kirk Cousins in December, you have to face Jared Goff again, maybe a healthy Jordan Love. What's that going to look like when you face a younger quarterback who's not going to miss on so many of those plays?
Good points, Andrew. As always, follow Andrew's work at StarTribune.com and in the newspaper as well. Andrew, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks.
And again, I think the level of trust the Vikings are putting on Sam Darnold this year to throw the ball downfield, especially in situations where it might be a little bit risky, where they're trying to protect the lead, where they're trying to grow a lead when it's late in the game. You can point to 2 or 3 games this year where they've taken some shots downfield when a conservative approach might have been the more traditional approach. I think that's been fascinating because you would have thought that they would have gone into this season trying to make Sam Darnold more of a game manager, and they've kind of done that in terms of how many throws he's making and the run-pass balance. They have not done that in the types of throws they are asking him to make. They are saying, you know what? Use your big arm. Use your big arm to push the ball down the field. Sometimes it's going to result in a negative play, but more often than not, they are liking the result. And like I said, Sam Darnold is having an objectively good season, or at least an objectively much better season than you could have expected from him. He is 5th in the league in passer rating right now. He is tied for 4th in the league with 17 touchdown passes. When you go to the advanced metrics, it's not quite as good, but it's still middle of the pack. Total QBR, he is 13th in the league right now. PFF grades, he's 17th. Like, you cannot ask for much more out of Sam Darnold than what he's giving you. Yeah, there's been some mistakes. Yeah, he made some really bad decisions in that game the other day, but he made up for them with some big-time throws. So it's fascinating for me to watch how they have used him, how much they have trusted him, how much they've said, you know what, Sam, we kind of get what you are. Go ahead and make those throws. We're going to live with the mistakes. We'd rather limit the mistakes, but we're going to live with those mistakes to push the ball down the field. That is not how I expected them to proceed, and it gives me a glimpse maybe into what Kevin O'Connell wants in a quarterback.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
It's Vikings poetry time on Daily Delivery. They say if you record it twice, it gets even better. Is that true, Keith Rashad?
Yeah, that's exactly true. And like I said last time, I want to make it clear why I am here today.
Yes.
Okay. There's only one reason why I'm here today, which is apparently when the Vikings do not play on Sunday, you just give this time slot to anybody that you darn well feel like.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently you gave it last week to mutual acquaintance / new mortal enemy, John Marthaler, so that he could talk about soccer of all things. He wants to talk about soccer. And I'm sure the conversation was riveting. I'm sure it was just great because he wanted to talk about some wee little European man kicking the ball to some wee little South American man. And I'm sure it was just enthralling. So I've come here today. The only reason why I'm here today, the only reason why I'm willing to do this again after a goof up is because I need to rightfully reclaim this space for Vikings poetry, because this is what is necessary. This is what happens on your least popular segment on your podcast.
Now, the really funny thing is, so I feel like I think I accidentally deleted our first recording, couldn't get it back because I cleaned up my desktop. I don't know why I did that, but I did. But John knows way more about computers and IT stuff than any of the rest of us in our friend group combined. He was trying to help me get it back, even knowing that there was probably a pot shot about him. But funny, whatever directions he was giving me to try to get the file back didn't work. Very curious about that. So anyway,
real convenient, John.
Very
real convenient.
I do appreciate his help. Keith, poem number 1, please.
A mountain snowfall makes Arizona the worst, like John Marthaler.
It's still funny, even though I knew it was coming. And so you got snow? What happened?
So I was up in Flagstaff for my son's hockey event, right?
Yes,
he had a hockey event on Sunday.
I love Flagstaff. Flagstaff's terrific.
Yeah, whatever. It's great. Fine. Who cares? Anyway, it snowed, right? It snowed in Flagstaff. And it was beautiful. It's a beautiful scene. It's up in the mountains, high elevation, right? It's not what you normally think about when you think about Arizona, right? I live in Tucson now, where it is hot all the time, where you do nothing but sweat 75% of the time. But we're up in Flagstaff, high elevation, beautiful. It snowed. It was gorgeous. The trees, the mountains, all of it, right? But the problem is that when it snows in Arizona, even in a place like Flagstaff, where it happens with some level of frequency, right? They become worse than Minnesota drivers the first time it snows.
Yes.
And so then we had it all planned out. It was with the Sunday night game. It was going to be perfect because my son's event was more in the morning, and then they're going to play Sunday night. And so that we can get back and at least watch some of it before my son's next hockey thing that I had that night. And what happened is then the traffic just got ridiculous. It got really, really bad. And it took me, and I'm telling you, this is no exaggeration, it took me 53 years to get home.
Wow.
It was just awful. And so I ended up having to listen to the first half of that stupid game on the radio, right? And
probably to your benefit. Probably to your benefit.
Maybe, but I can't tell. Is it more depressing to listen to whatever that first half was on the radio, where you can't even see it and be disgusted and throw something at the TV?
That's true.
It was just gross. Just a gross first half and a gross drive with a lot of traffic. And by the way, Phoenix is a concrete monster.
Oh, yeah. It is. I have a question, like a brief aside. You said 53 years to get home, which sounds like a long time. In that span, did the Vikings win the Super Bowl during those 53 years?
Um,
I
that's
don't
a
think
silly question.
I
Michael
don't
Rand
think
of
they
the
did.
Star Tribune.
All right. Poem number 2, please.
A resounding no to an important question. Is Flacco elite?
See, now when we recorded this the first time, I thought every punchline or every third verse of your Vaikus was going to be about John. So I appreciate that you just kept it. You kept it there, and you got to bad mouthing a Joe instead of a John. Flacco was terrible in that game. He was awful.
What's that old saying that lions don't worry themselves with the problems of sheep? I've had my say with John. So
I would say lions don't worry themselves with the problems of Packers either.
Yeah, guess not. That
was a pretty convincing win they had in that game. They look pretty good. I hear the narrative that I was buying going into this game was that the switch from Richardson to Flacco was going to be bad for the Vikings just because Flacco seemed like the kind of quarterback that had been giving them trouble, right? The guy that gets the ball out quick, could kind of exploit them over the middle. Again, no Blake Cashman in that game. Stafford had carved them up. Goff had carved them up. What I was forgetting is those guys are still a little bit young and spry, more so at least than Joe Flacco. And he just did not look like he wanted to be there at all.
You know, the guy had a good NFL career, right? And so you don't want to say anything bad about it. Like, the guy had a really nice NFL career and he won a Super Bowl. And so there's nothing to be ashamed of in what he's accomplished as a player in the league. However, at this point in history, right, he is only good for demonstrating just how bad your actual starting quarterback is. Right. If this is the alternative, right, a guy who has been cooked for a good number of years now.
He was good. He was good last year. He was good for Cleveland last year. He was
all right.
Compared to Deshaun Watson, which again is faint praise.
Exactly.
Yes,
compared to Deshaun Watson, he was okay. Right? He is only good enough right now to demonstrate just how bad the previous guy is. So the guy that was supposed to be your starter is. That's where he's at in his career, which, God bless the Colts, I guess, because that's a tough situation.
He was just what they needed in that game. He just turned out to be exactly what they needed. Just a guy who no mobility. He never had any mobility, but now that he's 39, almost 40, certainly doesn't move around very well. And it was funny too, because like they're kind of confusing him the whole game. His numbers are okay, but he's putting up no points. And that final drive, they sack him like 3 times just for good measure, just to make him feel really bad. All right, poem number 3.
Darnold reminds me of video game football. No checkdowns ever.
And do you like that? Do you like that?
Well, Kirk, I don't know. Look, this is what I'm saying. I've said this before to you, not to your massive audience who hates this particular subject.
An intimate audience of one, as it turned out.
Right. But I finally realized, listening to that game and watching that game, that Sam Darnold reminds me of back when I used to be able to invest some time in playing the football video games, right?
Yes.
And when I was playing the football video games, I was not a game manager.
No,
right?
Nobody should be.
I was not about chewing up the clock and time of possession. I was about flinging that ball down the field, right? First downs and touchdowns, baby. That's what I'm looking for out of life, right? And Sam Darnold strikes me as having pretty much that exact same mentality. Like, that is what he is looking for. And again, it is an observation. It's not a criticism, right? Yeah. It's just what I'm seeing, right? That this guy plays football in the way that I used to when it was just me and the controller.
Yeah, and he plays like we used to play, backyard football, pickup football when we were younger. Like, just it's more fun to do it that way. And listen, he's, I get it. You're not criticizing, you're observing, but he is objectively having a pretty good season. He's like 4th in touchdown passes. He's like 5th in passer rating in the NFL. Like, he's doing just fine the way he's doing it, even if it's not the way we're used to seeing it be done.
Right. The guy has led the team to a 6-2 record, right?
Yeah.
Again, observation, not criticism. It's just interesting to see this mentality after what we were stuck with for a good number of years there.
Yeah, I don't think we liked that very much. I can't wait for the simmering feud between Keith and John Marthaler to spill over to my group chat today. That will be something I can use as a distraction today from everything else. Let's finish with the cooler. Gopher women's basketball team cruises to a win in their opener on Tuesday night. Impressive for them. Good job by them. Want to see, how things go once the competition gets better, but I feel like this is going to be an NCAA tournament team this season. Got big things projected for them this year, so a good start for them, a good start to the season. We'll see where things go from here for them. That will do it for me today. Like I said, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Stay safe, stay dry. Go vote if you haven't done it yet. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday.